Richard Rouse.
Hey movie lovers, Richard Krause here. I just wanted to tell you about a movie called Julie and Julia, which opens on August 7th everywhere. Check it out. I had the chance today to sit down with Judith Jones, who is the real-life counterpart to one of the characters in the movie. Here's the deal. The movie starts off with Julia Powell, played by Amy Adams. She's a frustrated government worker. She's looking to enhance her life somehow. She wants to be a writer, so she decides on the idea of creating a blog based on mastering the art of French cooking, the famous Julia Child's book. Her idea is to cook every one of the 500 plus recipes in 365 days and blog about it all the way along. In a parallel story, we learn about Julia Childs and her life in France with her diplomat husband Paul. We learn about how she is also a frustrated government worker looking for some way to enhance her life, and she stumbles upon French cooking and writes a book that has now become a classic. Now, Judith Jones, the woman I spoke to today, her character in the film is the woman that realizes the worth of the book. She's an editor for Knopf in New York, and she signs the book, and of course it goes on to become a sensation, and Julia Childs becomes one of the best-known cooks of the 20th century. As I say, I had the chance to sit down with Judith Jones today to talk about Julia Child and the movie Julie and Julia. Let's have a look. It's interesting because at the time Joseph Knopf was, well, I mean, Knopf still exists, but he was a very powerful man in publishing. So to not have him like the title, did it make you doubt? Did it make you want to go back and give it something a little snappier or a little different? Or
I don't know. We had worked so hard to arrive there.
Right.
And I guess I felt that I knew because I was the perfect reader for this book.
Yeah.
And I would like a book that said mastering and that it wasn't art. I remember when I was in Paris, I wrote home to my parents. I had all those letters. They're wonderful. And I said in the superior tone, I said, what you don't understand about the French is that to them, cooking is an art, not a drudgery.
That's funny.
I just felt sure that this was the right title. And he was letting me stick my neck way out. So he didn't oppose it. I mean, it was...
And it's gone on to become one of their perennial sellers. It's in its 47th printing right now.
And it's going to have a whole new life when Julie and Julia hit the screen.
Absolutely. Well, I saw it with my girlfriend Andrea. She does not have the book, and it's now on the list. So it's going to sell at least one more copy after the movie.
Oh, I'm sure people, and particularly young people who haven't done much cooking, because again, it makes it look fun.
Yeah.
I mean, even though Julie is driven more by, not quite sure what she's driven by, but just wanting to do a feat that was daunting. Nevertheless, it is cooking, and the scenes of her with her, sort of young efforts.
Well, and they make it look really fun when he says Paul says it's like watching a symphony orchestra as she, tastes things and puts lids on it, the way she moves. It's very interesting to watch.
Don't you love that scene when Paul comes into the apartment on the...
And she's got the mound of onions?
She's chopped a whole pile of onions.
I know.
And he can hardly get through the door because they're stinging his eyes. So, but that is so typical Julia. To me, it exemplifies that determination that she didn't chop very well at that first lesson at the Cordon Bleu. So she went home and chopped the hell out of a pile of onions.
Well, you knew her well, and I wonder, I'd never met her, but in the film we see her as sort of, we see the steely determination in terms of cutting, huge piles of onions to learn how to cook and that sort of thing. But we also see she's very funny. And she had just sort of a real sort of gusto to her, a real spirit to her. Was she like, did Meryl Streep hit it pretty much on the head here?
Very much so. Yeah, that was the essence of Julia, and completely spontaneous. And I think when she hit television, she started doing by just being a guest on some literary program that I've been reading, and sort of for comfort, she took along that frying pan and her little burner and some eggs, and she was flipping omelets for these literary Cambridge men, and they got a lot of letters saying, "Get that woman on television."
Well, she was certainly unique.
Yeah.
You know, she wasn't, I don't think, what you would imagine as a television presenter.
No.
At the time, she was 6'2". She had kind of an unusual voice, you know, and she had sort of a more of
She was
a...
almost a little awkward at times, the way she walked.
But I think that's what people liked about her. I think that because it made her seem more real to them.
Yeah. And as Julia often said, I am not a chef, I'm a home cook.
Right.
And chefs can be daunting, let's face it.
Now, in the film, we find out that Julia Child, at age 90 or 92, I think, had read Julie Powell's blog and didn't approve. Do you know any more? Do you have any insight into that?
No, she and I both, you know, I was supposed to go out and see Julie cooking.
Yes.
I didn't know I was invited for dinner, but that's all right. And I talked with Julia, who was living in California then, and she said, I think we ought to read the blog. And so she read it, we talked, and she said, I don't think she's a serious cook. And she didn't like the four-letter words
like
used to describe cooking. I didn't either. I mean, we're not the generation that drops these into the soup every... And so she just felt, you know, I don't want to have anything to do with her, but I think had she met Julie and gotten a more of a sense of her purpose, which didn't quite come across in that sample blog. Maybe she got better, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was just, you know, why bother if it... And Julie was extremely generous to young cooks. She would do anything to help them.
Right. But I guess she regarded Julie as one of the flimsies.
As what?
As one of the flimsies.
Yes, yes, one of the flimsies.
We're just about out of time. Just ask you your general impression on the film and seeing yourself portrayed in the film. I mean, it's got to be thrilling.
Well, I think it's kind of fun because I'm both a villain and a savior. Got this dual role.
Richard Krause.